Let me tell you something. A relationship isn't built on full exposure, it's built on chosen truths. Some women think that love means telling a man everything, who hurt them, what they fear, how deep they've been broken. But here's what most don't realize. Men don't fall in love with history. They fall in love with mystery. Tell him too much too soon, and he won't see your strength. He'll see the pieces he might be asked to carry. Reveal every scar, and you might never find out if he was capable of loving the healed woman you've become. Ladies, this isn't about hiding. It's about knowing what your silence protects. There are 5 things a woman should always keep sacred. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why. The psychologist Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But here's the truth. Few dare to admit some women burn themselves out trying to transform too soon. They pour everything out, hoping it will bring closeness. But what they often create is imbalance. A subtle shift of power. And slowly, the magic fades not because she wasn't enough, but because she gave too much, too fast. In the next few minutes, I'll walk with you through the 5 things that should remain yours. Not as secrets, but as sacred spaces. For the woman who protects herself, protects her love. A man sits across from you, smiling. Maybe it's the first date. Maybe it's been a few months. The mood is light, the chemistry is there, and for a moment you feel safe. So you share. Not everything, just a little. About the man before him. How he used to bring you flowers. How he once showed up at your door in the rain. How he knew exactly how to hold you when you were about to fall apart. You're not doing it to compare. You're doing it to be real, to be transparent, because that's what love is supposed to be, right? But now watch him. He's still smiling. But behind his eyes, something has changed. You've planted a ghost between the two of you. And no matter how kind, secure, or evolved he is, a part of him now wonders, will I ever measure up? Carl Jung spoke often about the shadow, the parts of us we don't see, but that drives so many of our decisions. In men, that shadow often carries a hidden fear of inadequacy. They're taught to conquer, to be the first, to be the best. So when you bring another man, especially one who once held your heart, into the room, even through words, it activates that shadow. Suddenly, he's not building something new, he's battling something old. And that's not his fault. It's human. But here's where it gets harder. Because sometimes, it's not just the memory that stays, it's the emotion. You mention how you cried for nights over your exam now. Without knowing it, you've handed him a blueprint of your deepest vulnerability. Not only does he know what breaks you, he knows someone else broke you first. He may never mention it. He may nod, even hold your hand, but it lingers. And over time, resentment takes root, not because he's unkind, but because no man wants to feel like he's walking in another's footsteps. Even worse, he might weaponize it. Not all at once, but during a fight, when you're vulnerable, he might say, "Funny, you didn't get this angry when your ex did worse." Suddenly, you're not fighting over the present. You're bleeding from the past. Many women think sharing these stories builds trust, that showing pain will earn understanding. But here's what few understand. Men don't fall in love through history. They fall in love through presence. The woman who sits across from him today, not the girl who once fell apart in someone else's arms. This doesn't mean you lie. It doesn't mean you erase your past. It means you honor it by protecting it. You've already survived it. You've already done the work. So why invite comparison into something that should be sacred and new? And let's be honest, some men aren't strong enough to hold your truth. They think they want to know, but deep down they're hoping your stories reassure them. And when they don't, they change. They grow colder, more distant. Not because of what you said, but because of what it stirred inside of them. You deserve a love that starts fresh, not one that fights old battles. You deserve a man who sees your wholeness, not your history. And most of all, you deserve to write a new chapter, without an old name bleeding through the pages. Some women will say, "But I want him to know me." And I understand. But knowing you doesn't mean knowing everyone who came before him. He will know you by how you laugh now, how you speak your truth now, how you choose high every day. If the man you love needs proof that you've suffered to believe you're worthy of love, he's not ready. There's a kind of power in silence. Not the silence of shame, but the silence of sovereignty. Your past is a temple. Not everyone gets to walk through it. There's a moment, early in many relationships, when a woman feels she must make a choice. To open up or to hold back. To tell him about the night she cried alone, the voices in her head, the childhood that never gave her safety. To share the wounds, hoping he'll understand, hoping he'll stay. And sometimes, he does. At first, he listens, he holds her, he tells her she's brave. And in that moment, it feels like healing. But days pass, then weeks. And slowly, subtly, something shifts. He starts seeing her not as the strong woman he once admired, but as someone who needs saving. He used to look at her like a flame. Now, he sees her as a flicker. Carl Jung often spoke of the personality mask we wear to meet the world. In love, we long to drop that mask. But here's the danger. When you hand it over too quickly, before trust is built, you don't create intimacy, you create imbalance. You become emotionally naked in front of someone who hasn't yet earned the right to see you that way. Not every man knows what to do with your honesty. Some will admire it. Some will use it. And some will slowly grow tired of it. Because let's face it, vulnerability feels like connection, but it also comes with a quiet ask. Can you hold me in this? And if he's not ready, not steady, not self-aware, he won't say no. He'll say yes, and silently start retreating. You might not notice it at first. He still calls, still shows up, but his eyes aren't as curious. His touch isn't as present. And you wonder, did I do something wrong? No. You were just early. In love, timing is everything. The right truth shared too soon can become a weight. And the truth is, your weakness is not the problem. The problem is giving it away before you know how someone will carry it. Many women mistake full disclosure for deep love. If I tell him everything, he'll see I trust him. But real trust isn't in how much you reveal. It's in how long you wait to reveal it. The strongest women I've known weren't the ones who hardened themselves. They were the ones who stayed soft selectively. They didn't build walls. They built thresholds. They chose who to let in. And they never handed over their whole story to a man still writing his introduction. A good man will protect you. But even good men have limits. And the wrong man? He'll remember every fear you named and use it when you least expect. He'll make you feel like you're lucky he's still here, like no one else would want you. This is why discernment is power. Not every man deserves access to your fragility. Your softness is sacred. It is not a gift for anyone who simply shows interest. It is a privilege to be earned. When a woman pours all of herself into a man too soon, something invisible happens. She hands over the emotional weight of her survival, and now she is not a partner. She becomes a project. But you were never broken. You were just becoming. So hold your softness with pride. Let it be the gentle part of you that waits not in fear, but in wisdom. Wait for the man who can look into your storm and not flinch. Wait for the man who sees your silence and still listens. Wait for the one who shows he's worthy before you hand him your ache. And until then, let your strength be quiet. Let your vulnerability stay sacred. Because you are not a wound needing rescue. You are a woman remembering her wholeness. She didn't mean to make him uncomfortable. All she did was mention the promotion, or the debt she finally paid off. Or maybe, just maybe, she offered to split the bill, and suddenly his eyes shifted. No raised voice, no argument, just distance. Money. The subject we pretend doesn't matter, until it does. Carl Jung once observed that modern man is surrounded by symbols yet blind to what they truly mean. And in relationships, money is more than dollars. It's a symbol of power, of independence, of self-worth. When a woman shares too much about her finances too soon, whether wealth or struggle, she's not just sharing numbers. She's unintentionally redefining the emotional territory of the relationship. Let's say she earns more. Suddenly, she becomes the provider. Not because she asked for it, but because he felt the shift. His masculinity quietly questioning itself. His role suddenly unclear. Now let's say she earns less and tells him everything. Every bill, every unpaid loan, every financial wound still bleeding. He may feel protective at first. But protection, when mixed with pressure, can turn sour. What starts as generosity becomes control. What begins as help turns into quiet resentment. Here's the paradox. Women think financial transparency builds trust. But in the early stages, it often builds tension. Because money is more than a fact. It's a mirror. And some men don't like what it shows them. Some will feel emasculated by your success. Others will see your struggle as an opening to fix, to lead, to dominate. Neither of these paths leads to partnership. They lead to imbalance. And imbalance, over time, erodes intimacy. You might think, but I have nothing to hide. And that's true. But this isn't about hiding. It's about timing. Your financial life is not a test. It is a sacred part of your identity, one that deserves to be protected until trust is earned. There's also the issue of expectation. When a man knows too much, too soon he may start expecting more. More vacations. More gifts. More of you in ways you never offered. Not out of greed, but out of assumption. Because when information isn't balanced by intimacy, it becomes currency. And love becomes negotiation. The strongest women I've known, they didn't flaunt their success. They didn't apologize for it either. They let their actions speak. And they waited to see if the man standing beside them could celebrate their power without shrinking. Because some men don't want a partner. They want a reason to feel needed. And when they can't provide in the way they were taught to, they act out. Not always with cruelty. Sometimes just with silence. Or distraction. Or pulling away. And then there's the darker side. A man who knows you're struggling might begin to control how you spend. Might guilt you. Might slowly turn love into leverage. He says, I'm just helping. But your freedom says otherwise. This is why financial independence isn't just attractive, it's protective. It allows you to love from choice, not from need. To share, not to survive. To build, not to beg. So yes, talk about goals. Talk about dreams. But wait, before revealing every dollar, every debt, every detail. Because love is not a merger. It's a dance. And your worth is not your income. It's your integrity. Let him fall in love with your mind. Let him admire your vision. Let him earn the right to know the rest. And when the time is right, you'll know. Because the man who's worthy won't need your bank account to feel secure. He'll need your presence, your partnership, and your peace. She didn't mean to lean. At first, it was just a moment. A hard day. A wave of self-doubt. He listened. he reassured. And for the first time in a long while, she felt held. So she leaned a little more, then again, until the leaning became a habit. And without realizing it, her emotional world began to orbit around him. This is how emotional dependency begins. Quietly, tenderly, disguised as closeness. Carl Jung taught that every relationship is a mirror, and what we cling to in others often reflects what we haven't yet claimed in ourselves. When a woman seeks constant reassurance from a man, she's not just asking for love. She's asking him to be the guardian of her self-worth. But here's the truth. No man, no matter how kind, can hold that weight forever. In the beginning, he might feel honored, needed, even heroic. But as the weeks go on, the emotional gravity grows heavier. What once felt like intimacy now feels like responsibility. He's not your partner anymore. He's your lifeline. And lifelines, when tugged too hard, begin to fray. You might not see it at first. You think you're just communicating, just being open. But soon, your highs depend on his attention. Your lows depend on his silence. And every little shift in his energy becomes a storm in your heart. This is not connection. It's collapse. A woman who leans too hard begins to disappear. Her identity merges with his mood. Her peace depends on his presence. And slowly, quietly, she forgets how to stand alone. Not because she's weak, but because she gave up the parts of herself that once held her. Let's be clear. Sharing your heart isn't the problem. Expecting someone else to hold it always is. There is a difference between emotional intimacy and emotional dependence. Intimacy says, I want you with me. Dependency says, I don't know who I am without you. And men, especially those not grounded in themselves, will start to pull away. Not because they don't care, but because they feel trapped, loved, but also responsible for your happiness. Adored, but overwhelmed by your need. And that, over time, doesn't build closeness. It breeds resentment. Some women confuse vulnerability with devotion. They believe that handing over their entire emotional world proves loyalty. But in truth, it erodes the very foundation of respect. Because men don't fall in love with emotional need. They fall in love with emotional grace. With a woman who can sit in her sadness without drowning. Who can share her struggles, but doesn't expect rescue. Who lets him witness her storms, but never asks him to control the weather. Emotional independence is not distance. It's dignity. It says, I love you deeply, but I will not lose myself to keep you. And that kind of love, that's the one men remember. That's the one they fight to keep. So ask yourself gently, do I share to connect, or do I share to be saved? Because the woman who knows the difference, she doesn't need to chase closeness. She is closeness. She becomes the calm in her own storm. And when she chooses to let a man in, it's not to complete her. It's to dance beside her, side by side. Not leaning, not dragging, just standing. Before we move on, let's be honest. Emotional dependency and silent expectations often walk hand in hand. When you start leaning too much, you quietly start expecting him to hold all your weight. But here's the difference: dependency is the pull. Expectation is the pressure. And that pressure is what we need to talk about now. She didn't say it out loud, but it was there in every glance, every pause, every quiet disappointment. A silent contract. Make me feel whole. She never meant to demand it. She just thought, that's what love does. It fills the cracks, heals the past, proves that this time will be different. Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But how many women lose that privilege because they tie their becoming to a man? We don't even know we're doing it. It begins with subtle hope. This time, he'll see me. This time, he'll stay. This time, I won't have to ask. And when he doesn't meet that hope, when he forgets the little detail or misses the emotion behind your silence, it hurts, not because of the moment itself, but because of the meaning we layered onto it. Unspoken expectations are the heaviest weights in love, because they are rarely fair and never named. You expect him to know what you need. You expect him to anticipate your wounds. You expect him to behave like the version of love you've built in your mind. And when he doesn't, it's not just disappointment, it feels like betrayal. But here's the truth. He didn't sign up to complete your healing. He signed up to love you. And love, real love, begins where fantasy ends. Many women enter relationships carrying a blueprint, not just of what they want, but of what they need. But instead of owning that need, they place it in a man's hands quietly, unconsciously. They don't say, "I'm still learning how to feel safe." They show it through jealousy. They test it through silence. They expect it through endless emotional exams. And men, no matter how good, begin to feel like they're being graded for a course they never enrolled in. It's not his fault. It's not yours. It's just a pattern born from the parts of you still aching for reassurance. But here's what those parts need to hear. No one can love you well enough to fix the way you love yourself. That is your sacred work. When you expect a man to constantly soothe your fears, prove your worth, carry your emotions, you're not in a relationship. You're in a transaction. Unspoken, but deeply felt. You say, "Be my safe space." But are you your own? Because the women who truly find peace in love are the ones who no longer use it to cover their emptiness. They arrive already full. Not perfect, not invulnerable, but full with self-awareness, with clarity, with accountability. They don't punish a man for failing to read their mind. They teach him how to love them gently, clearly, patiently. They don't crumble when he's human. They stay soft, but solid. And the irony? That's when love begins to feel like freedom. Not pressure, not performance, but presence. So if you've ever found yourself resenting a man for not giving you what you never asked for, pause. Ask yourself, was I expecting love or repair? Because love is not a therapy session. And a man is not your mirror. He can walk beside you, but he cannot carry the work you refuse to do. The moment you release a man from your unspoken contracts, you give him room to show up as he is, not as the savior you silently scripted. And in that space, you get to decide, do I love him, or do I love what I imagined he would fix? A woman who knows the answer to that question, she becomes impossible to manipulate, unshakable, and finally ready. 1. Remember what I told you in the beginning. A woman must never reveal everything, not because she's hiding, but because she's protecting what's sacred. Now, you understand why. Not because men are fragile, not because love can't handle truth, but because intimacy isn't built through exposure. It's built through discernment. You've seen now how the past, when spoken too soon, becomes a shadow he can't outgrow. How vulnerability, when handed to the unready, becomes a weight. How money, when overshared, shifts the ground beneath your feet. How emotional need, when unchecked, turns affection into pressure. And how expectations, when buried, grow into silent resentments. But beneath all of it, there's one truth. The woman who keeps something for herself isn't closed. She's centered. She doesn't hand over her story too quickly. She doesn't ask a man to become the architect of her worth. She knows her heart is not a place for unfinished men to find direction. She is not a project. She is a presence. And the man who truly sees her won't need every detail to stay. He'll love the way she carries herself, the way she trusts slowly, the way she chooses peace over performance. You don't need to tell him everything for him to love you. You need to tell him what matters, when it matters, in a way that honors both of you. So here's your truth. You are not more lovable because you bleed on cue. You are not more worthy because you open all your wounds. You are lovable because you are whole, even with your silence, especially with your silence. Some things are not secrets. They are sanctuaries. Let a man earn the key. And if you've ever been told you're too guarded or too much, remember this. You are not too much. You've just learned to protect what others tried to take for free. Because love, real love, isn't proven by how much you give away. It's proven by how much you honor yourself while giving it. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of the 5 truths spoke to you most? Leave a comment, and if this message stirred something in you, share it with the woman you know who gives too much, too soon, because maybe she needs to be reminded. What you keep keeps you whole.